In the world of drones, where the sky is not just the limit, rather a playground, there exists a machine so advanced it could probably do your taxes, walk your dog, and still have enough bandwidth to spy on your neighbors. I'm talking, of course, about the Skydio X10, a drone not just with a camera, but with 3. Yes, 3. Because why settle for one when you can make everything look like a Bollywood blockbuster? Now, Skydio claims this marvel of aviation can dodge obstacles with the agility of a cat evading bath time. And it's got a range so vast, calling it long would be like calling the Sahara a bit sandy. It's so clever, it flies over 5G. That's right, while you're struggling to get 1 bar of reception on your phone, this drone is zipping around in crystal clear, high-definition glory. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, oh no. The Skydio X10, with its ability to autonomously upload your footage to the cloud while recharging, suggests it might be smarter than half the population on the internet. However, it flies with grace of a startled pigeon until you hit the boost button. Suddenly, it's as if it's been given a shot of espresso mixed with rocket fuel. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, the price. The Skydio X10 comes with a price tag that might just make even the most extravagant spender's eyes water.
Yes.
But is it worth it? Is this the drone to end all drones? Or is it just an overpriced toy for those who have run out of things to spend money on? Strap in. We're about to find out if the Skydio X10 really is the future of aerial surveillance and inspections, or if it's just an expensive way to check if you left the garden shed open. This drone truly takes flight in a very different and unique methodology, which is why today we're going to be going over the features of this rather impressive drone, talk about the elephant in the room as far as price point, and actually provide you with a sense of what this drone is truly capable of doing, and even address some of the concerns of previous Skydio drones. The real elephant in the room here. A lot of people are not happy with Skydio. Why? Due to their lobbying efforts in regards to the DJI and the Autel drone ban. Please understand the reason that we did this review is to provide insight and information on what this drone is capable of doing and what it's not capable of doing. This drone works really well in very specific environments, and it's a very different drone than what you're used to. Let's get back to the review. Previous Skydio drones had a litany of issues with them, from range to time that it takes to get up and start flying, to its lackluster and small resolution thermal cameras, and to even its kind of subpar mapping cameras as well. Well, the X10 rises above the X2 faster than a SpaceX rocket over NASA. Frankly, it's unparalleled. So let's talk about the Skydio X10's key features and features that I personally love about this drone. Number 1 is the triple camera sensor. Now, previous Skydios did not really have the best sensors, and many of you might even be intrinsically comparing this drone against the DJI M30T, which who could blame you? Because honestly, they both have triple camera sensors, except this drone does not look like a flying spider. This drone looks more like a drone. Now with this triple camera sensor though, we are not only just getting a FLIR boson 640p thermal sensor at a 40-degree field of view, but we're also getting a 64 megapixel narrow camera and a 48 megapixel zoom camera. And the zoom is pretty impressive. Similar to other drones that have optical and digital hybrid zoom, this drone also has that amazing feature. Not only that, as many of you know, Skydio sells most of its drones with a plethora of software. Software to do remote operations, software to do 3D scan, or having no flight planning necessary. You give the drone some basic parameters like a point of interest, a radius, etc., and the drone takes care of the rest. But what you probably didn't know is that the Skydio X10 will actually process the map and model on the drone and uploaded to the cloud using Skydio's system. But with integrations from things like Drone Deploy and Esri's site scan service, you can also integrate this drone to communicate directly with either of those mapping services to really streamline the process of getting maps and models done, delivered to clients, interpreted, and getting action items moving in your project management software. Let's be honest, the range on this drone is very different from the range on previous Skydio drones. I would say that previous Skydio drones were much like the experience that you would find on Alibaba. As soon as your son or daughter flew the drone behind a tree, it would disappear and fly back to the mainland. Well, this drone is not like that. In fact, I've already tested the range on this drone to the absolute edge of our wide area authorization here at Drone U, and surprisingly enough, it has the same capacity of range that your standard Mavic drones have, that your standard Matrice drones have, and actually the signal is quite robust. But Skydio takes it even farther. They offer you the ability to fly on 5G, just like what we talked about with the very first drone that did that, the Anafi AI by Parrot. The two key differences between the Anafi AI and this drone is not just the price point. The Anafi AI has one camera that can do zoom and wide. It has Pix40 built into it. This drone takes all of that a step further by actually processing the data on the drone and then sharing it out from there. It's a new level of integration, a new level of efficiency. And when you can fly the drone over 5G, now you can set up programs much like what many power utilities have done to create remote operations and fly power lines at very long distances and have that data uploaded into your cloud almost instantaneously. This is the force multipliers that we need in the drone industry to actually get a lot of work done quickly, which probably is making you wonder, who is this drone really for? Because Paul, isn't that thing wildly expensive? Yes, it is. So this drone really is for enterprise individuals and industrial applications. Think of power utilities. I would not include communication utilities in this, but power utilities, absolutely. Community and regional planning, absolutely. Water management utilities, absolutely. Conservatories, absolutely. This drone will take you to all new heights when building skyscrapers, large buildings, and data centers. Frankly though, with its price point, you could buy the equivalent of 4 M30Ts for this one drone. And while that offers a significant enhancement, the M30T only has a 12 megapixel camera versus the 64 megapixel camera on this drone, which might have you scratching your head. Paul, what kind of sensor is on a 64 megapixel camera? I'm so happy you asked. The 64 megapixel camera is a 1/1.7 inch camera sensor. The other camera sensor is the same exact camera sensor used in the Phantom 4 Pro version 2. So while many of you might be pissed about Skydio's regulatory efforts and stopping the consumer drone platform, they took a lot of information from those consumer drones and wrapped it into this X10, which might make you beg the question, Paul, are you being paid for this Skydio review? Nope, no I'm not. I'm trying to stay on top of understanding all these different enterprise drones to provide you with the best information possible. Skydio is not paying me for this video, but bet your butt that if I said some negative things about this, they would definitely come after me. So we'll be careful with our language and do it in a way that drives humor and also gives you the information that you need to know. Okay, getting back to the features on this drone, one of my absolute favorite features on this drone is many of you know the issue when you are going home and you want to upload footage and you got to organize it. Many of you are familiar with DJI's enterprise file organization system that they rolled out in, I think, 2021. Essentially, every time that you start a mission, new folder. Anytime that you start a mapping mission, inside of that, new folder with just that information. This way, all that information is autonomously organized so you can process the data. I'll be honest with you, my favorite feature is the fact that you can plug this drone in, it communicates with your Wi-Fi router,
and autonomously uploads all of your photos in an organized manner right to the cloud so you can start processing right away if you don't want to use Skydio's processing engine, which you do have to pay extra for. So with that said, while many of you might be saying, that's a great feature, I don't want my drone connected to the internet, I totally understand why, because our drone has lost some features since we've had it, and that must have been done over Wi-Fi. So I totally understand how that can go both ways. I think the efficiency though that's gained by not having to, put your drone in the truck, get the laptop out, do all that, there's a lot of value in that. Lastly, how this drone flies. You can clearly tell what type of flight controller that this drone is using. For a lot of my experienced pilots out there, I'm sure many of you would argue that there's like 3 different distinct types of flight controllers, at least more of the consumer or DJI pilots. So I would argue that most people understand the old DJI, the inputs are directly associated with the outputs. There's the newer DJI where yaw is prioritized over the roll. So you don't get these nice bird-like motions, but it allows you to do much nicer orbits. Okay, a lot of people would say that the second type of flight controller is pretty much any FPV flight controller, right? You have full control, you tune the PIDs, you can, make it fly any different way, but ultimately you have full control. This drone I would put in the 3rd class of flight controller, where I'm gonna call it the Pixhawk flight controller class. And what I mean by that is, many of you know this too, think of 3DR Solo. It flies, and then, but when you want to pitch it forward, it's like, it's almost like a arcing motion. It's not like a direct pitch forward and add thrust. It's like okay, like I'm having trouble eloquently explaining it. It is not a flaw. It is not negative, but for those of you who haven't flown a Pixhawk, a Cube, all those that are based off of the original Pixhawk flight controller setup and the Arduino setup, you know what I'm talking about with this like delayed methodology of flying. For some of you who haven't flown it, it might cause you to panic a little bit because the whole idea of a frantic pigeon is so true and apt for this drone. So let's talk about the pros and cons. This drone has world-class autonomy. So this drone has obstacle avoidance that is far superior to anything that's out there. Now, there are pros and cons to that. Pro, let's talk about a pro of the best autonomy out there. 1, Adam Bry, you deserve a lot of credit. I don't know how you figured out to code out reflectivity in windows, but the drone was able to recognize windows. And when we got close to buildings to do 3D scans and whatnot, it was impressively good. Normally, a lot of drones are gonna fail in reflective environments, water, glass, metallic objects. I would still say I've seen this have issues with reflections on big, tall poles, but that's about it. It did really well with glass. So Adam, you deserve a lot of credit, my friend. What is a pro of world-class leading autonomy and having autonomy prioritized over user input? Think of like power substations. Think of flying in heavy interference environments. Think of warehouses. Think of universities with a lot of Wi-Fi. Think of power lines, communications, think of rail yards, right? In all of those different environments, the Skydio is going to succeed over other drones because the autonomy engine is prioritized over the radio or the user input. So the Skydio is able to fly around things like power substations without going crazy, having a flyaway, and causing millions of dollars of damage. That's where this drone really shines. But with previous Skydios, it shined in that environment as well. I wanted to take it a step further and see how is this drone going to do with other sorts of inspections, photogrammetric or drone mapping missions, etc. Which brings me to testing the orthomosaic functionality on this drone. And the results were actually quite surprising. Number 1, I have never seen a sub-half centimeter ground sampling distance, which means that the quality on this mapping drone is astronomically good. So we flew this drone and the Mavic 3 Enterprise to do a single grid ortho mission over our stockyards over here. And long story short is, while the Mavic 3 Enterprise flew the mission in half the time that it took the Skydio to fly the mission, the Skydio's imagery at the exact same altitude okay, was 3 times better, meaning the actual ground sampling distance from the Mavic 3 Enterprise, I believe, was 1.4 centimeters GSD, and the Skydio X10 was 0.38 centimeters or 3.8 millimeters. Because the camera sensor has so many pixels on it on a fairly decent sized sensor, it means that it can accept incredible detail. For those of you processing drone maps in cloud-based software, you're not gonna have to worry about this next part. For whatever reason, Skydio still did not go with a global shutter camera, which means that when you process this ortho or 2D mapping data, it is going to take significantly longer than the drones that you might already be used to. Now, if you're using a cloud service like Esri's SiteScan, Drone to Map, Drone Deploy, or even Skydio's solution itself, you'll find that that processing time will not matter as much because the processing capabilities of their network-based machines is far superior to what you have. So if you're processing maps yourself, it's gonna take longer, but it's actually an efficiency force multiplier because even though it takes twice as long to fly the same site as other drones, it's 3 times better in quality of detail. So you can make much better decisions as a whole. The other thing is when we talk about flying this drone, I know I've already mentioned kind of the frantic pigeon methodology. It is actually really smooth, and it's been made so that drone pilots, when they first pick up the controls, they feel confident when they take flight with this drone. But if you want to take flight like an Inspire 2 or FPV drone or a bat out of hell, you're gonna have to hit that handy dandy boost button, which will take the drone up to about, I only could get it to about 37 miles an hour. When we talk about lifetime, when we talk about how much flight time that we actually get on these batteries, well, without going over a fairly important piece of information about this battery, I will say you get about 35 minutes of flight time. Here at higher elevation, I don't think we surpass 28 or 30 minutes, but it's equivalent to what you would get with other drones as well. And I would say sufficient. Because when you compare this drone against another domestically approved drone that's in the same price bracket, that offers the same level of service, you're really looking at a FreeFly Astro drone. Actually, a FreeFly Astro drone would be cheaper than this, believe it or not. So Tab, great job again. Now, when we talk about this drone, it really is an inspection and mapping drone. The mapping capabilities, it does offer 2D and 3D based acquisition methodologies, and it also includes that 3D scan, which essentially, again, you pick the point to the center of what you're trying to map, you pick the radius, and it figures everything else out. You don't have to be an experienced drone mapper to be able to get high quality oblique and lifelike data. Now, I will say that in mapping a cell tower mission and using the tower scan functionality, which is no longer available, it was unable to actually complete the communications or cell tower scan. Now, I think it kept getting stuck. We tried a couple different things. We tried increasing the operational radius. We tried decreasing the amount of space that the drone needs to avoid obstacles. We tried a litany of different things to get it to work. And actually, when it comes to cell towers, that drone pilot mindset, experience, and knowledge still pays off. Now, while you think that I might be negative about this drone, the mapping quality out of this data is astronomical. It is so good. And we're gonna be doing further tests even today, talking about accident reconstruction, using this drone for public safety. Because this drone does offer multiple payloads, and we only have one of the payloads. This is another thing that Adam, Bry, you deserve a lot of credit for. And, you know, Tab, you guys have done something very similar. You guys are building a drone platform. You'll see on this X10 that there are actually USB-C outlets all over this drone because they have a slew of new sensors and accessories for this drone that's really gonna help people like public safety. This is actually the first drone that's going to be able to operate at nighttime with obstacle avoidance working. If you've ever flown the M30T and you try to fly it at night, the obstacle avoidance does not work. This platform though, that we talk about, there is a whole nother camera payload. We have the VT300Z as in Zulu, for those of you across the pond, Z. This is just one payload. There's the other payload that ends in L or Lima, and that offers a litany of different sensors, but is made for low light capabilities. It's made for flying at night, autonomy at night, and helping people like public safety who really want to help public safety members. It's not just saving the public. The public half the time, come on, you drive around, you know, I mean, people have a hard time figuring out whether they're gonna make a right or a left turn sometimes. But these drones help save the people that really, truly put their life on the line, that have the courage and bravery to do it. We're talking about the service members themselves. Using these drones for public safety, these drones are domestically approved. Let's go over operational advantages. Extended operational range. The range on the remote is superb. The 5G capability, superb. It has enhanced safety and accessibility with the autonomy engine, and it really minimizes the need for human operators to avoid potentially hazardous obstacles. Now that said, something that I think is really important in an ideological stance is when we talk about drones, we really should not be talking about drones or even like AI replacing people. I think it's so critical for the advancement of human life and the advancement of the American economy that we consider AI, and specifically these drones, as an augmentation of a person, not the replacement of a person. Otherwise, soon our society is going to degrade, and it's going to be like Ready Player One before we know it, and there are going to be skyscrapers of trailer parks. No one wants that, okay? But the augmentation of the pilot and the power of this technology, the pilot and the drone offer a symbiosis that is currently unmatched. And it offers a level of operational efficiency that we currently haven't seen yet. This drone is remote ID compliant. This also does have security and encryption that a lot of other drones do not have. I will say though that with the training and proficiency, Skydio has really taken it up a notch with their online based training, but I would still recommend that many of you that are considering buying a Skydio, we have a great friend that can help you. His name is Trent Cossey. And in fact, if you use the coupon code DroneU then he will actually hook you up with a small deal to give you a little bit of a discount because you came here and you're working with Trent. There are very few people that can actually sell you Skydios. DroneU, we don't sell drones. That's why I'm just saying I'm gonna give you who you can get this drone from if you want that help. And I will say, I think it's worth actually going out and doing a demo on this drone. You're gonna be impressed. I'm gonna give a shout out to PJ, our Director of Operations. He put out on LinkedIn essentially a graph of his heart rate flying DJI drones versus his heart rate flying a Skydio. There was a huge delta that when he's flying a Skydio, his heart rate was actually much lower. Now, I would love to see a comparison of that data and like John McBride's heart rate data. But that said, I think it does prove an important point for most operators out there that you are going to have more confidence flying this drone innately. Also, just don't forget that overconfidence is one of the biggest issues in aviation, because as soon as you take risk beyond your actual envelope that has a huge delta of risk, that's when problems happen. That's when the margin of error happens. So when we talk about the future implications of this drone is actually going to, in my eyes, open up and blossom the drone industry even further by allowing remote operations, drone in the box operations. And it's also going to empower a whole new world of security. I know many of you out there that I've worked with that are LEOs, public safety and whatnot. A lot of you know about the work that we did with Sandia National Labs on Project Gridlock of essentially having a security-based mesh of drones. So you could literally solve all crime, right? I think it was PSI out of Baltimore that tried doing that system, but with Cessna airplanes, Supreme Court shot the whole thing down, saying that they can't use evidence collected on domestic civilians. Don't quote me on that. That wasn't the exact reason. I'm just giving you a synopsis, essentially. But when we consider Skydio, when we consider security at the border, it's gonna be companies like Skydio, Easy Aerial, Sunflower Labs. All of those drone-in-a-box solutions are going to be providing a whole new realm of security. When you can essentially detect something via an IR fence, pop a drone up, get real-time eyes on what's going on, live stream it anywhere in the country, and send a response in near real time, that is going to set up a different world of security. I already have friends in Southern California, Kent, hope you're doing well, who already do security services for elite individuals, for all sorts of individuals, and they are now turning to these drone-in-a-box solutions. So that might actually open up more jobs for people like you, for people like Landsky.ai, who help service those companies, those people to actually deliver end-to-end security solutions with drone-in-a-box. Let's conclude and let's be honest about the Skydio X10. In all honesty, I've had to refilm this conclusion, and you can probably tell that I look a little bit different now because it's been about 6 weeks since we've had the drone, and I've talked to a lot of our industrial clients. And you really get two groups of people. And so I wanna be very honest with you and let you decide if the Skydio X10 is right for you. In all honesty, you can get your hands on a Skydio X10 for as little as, I've seen, $16,000. Most of them are about $23,000 when you factor in the ability to do some basic automated mapping missions and some other features that they charge you for. Now, if you are in critical infrastructure, or if you have to comply with the NDAA on using domestically approved drones, then the Skydio X10 is probably the best for you if you're doing mapping. I think that there is another drone that's way better if you're doing mapping plus video and photos, meaning you need like an amazing all-in-one drone, which we're gonna be doing a huge video series on this. We're talking about the FreeFly Astro. Now, if you are doing inspection work and you have to comply with the NDAA and you have to use a domestically approved drone, the Skydio X10 is definitely the way to go. But I think it's also important to understand why we're saying this, or the system that we're saying this. So I have all of my notes from when we were out at the Loveland Fire Rescue Authority Training Center, which, by the way, thank you to the Loveland Fire and Rescue Authority for letting us film out there. Greatly appreciate it. To our good friends and really our liaison out there, Matt D. Decker. Just really appreciate you, man. When we're talking about the size of the area, we had really two missions that we were gonna fly. A 300-foot single grid mission, just having them all fly at a set area, at a set altitude. Yes, they're gonna have various ground sampling distances. So then we did a secondary mission that was more 3D focused, more focused around a car accident. And what we did is we actually made sure that the ground sampling distance was the same on that mission for all of the drones. But let's talk about the single grid nadir mission. For many of you, you know that this is the mission that you wanna take volumetric measurements off, linear measurements. It's gonna provide the best bare earth model and the best orthomosaics, which Skydio in the past wasn't the best at, but the X10 did a phenomenal job. Remember, all these drones flew at the same height, which is gonna be 300 feet. For the accident reconstruction, we wanted to maintain a 1/2 inch GSD or 1.27 centimeter GSD. I will say, on the 3D modeling, Skydio did a really fantastic job. And I have had to re-record, as I mentioned, I've had to re-record this conclusion a few different times because I've talked to clients and I thought that they would want something specific and they wanted something very different. In comparing this data, this was an 11-acre area, 300 feet. The Skydio X10 took 3 minutes to flight plan and it took 20 minutes to fly the mission. The FreeFly Astro, using Esri's Site Scan and the Site Scan Mapper program, it took 90 seconds to flight plan and it took 7 minutes to fly the whole area. Mavic 3 Enterprise took 2 minutes to flight plan, so slightly more than the Astro, but it only took 3 minutes to fly the whole area, which is incredibly fast. The Wingtra took 2 minutes to flight plan and took 7 minutes to actually fly the whole area. So when we look at this data, the Skydio X10 has a much higher megapixel mapping camera, but it is a linear rolling shutter camera. So if you saw our video on Instagram of the whole our drone does the lean back thing, they have tried to speed up mapping acquisition So with linear rolling shutter cameras, the old methodology of making this work was most drones would come to a stop, take the picture, and keep moving. It was called safe mode. You saw with 3DR and 3D robotics, they started doing this flight pattern where it would fly, slow down, snap the photo, and keep doing it. We also saw that with the EB and the EBX. That's a very common flight pattern. But with the Skydio X10, it has this huge, like, woo, lean back, and then it flies to the next waypoint and snaps a photo. It does this because it's a linear rolling shutter camera. And while it's amazing that it's a 1-inch sensor and 62 or 64 megapixels, that's great. But when it's a linear rolling shutter camera, it comes down to this formula that some of my clients have made it very clear why they may not buy an X10 and go over other things, which is this. When you compare a 20-minute flight time versus a total of 5 minutes for other drones, yes, you get higher quality with the Skydio X10, but you're flying at a multiple slower than other drones, which means the overall mission is less efficient, which is why this is becoming an algorithm, right? If this, then that. So if you have to comply with the NDAA and buy a domestically approved drone, which you would be surprised how many people actually have to do that. It's very low. Then the Skydio X10 is the way to go. Best drone that you can get. Now, if you are not limited to the NDAA, there are other drones that are much more efficient, but don't have the quality. Look, Skydio flight time way higher, but the quality is way higher. When I ask my clients about this, they're like, we don't care about that. The quality right now is good enough. I was stunned to hear that. But it also makes sense why the Mavic 3 Enterprise didn't increase their megapixels, because they don't care. They're like, bigger sensor, same megapixel, better data. Very smart. When it comes to Skydio though, their drones do provide a higher quality data. It just takes longer to acquire said data, and it takes longer to process that data. Now, Skydio, very intelligent, Skydio came up with a methodology of solving that problem, solving the slow processing problem. If you're processing with Skydio and with their system, guess what? You can leave the drone turned on, and it's actually going to process the data on the drone and then upload that information to your Skydio account where you can look at it. You can also use your Skydio drone and something like Drone Deploy and upload all those images, and Drone Deploy processes it. And then the slow processing time doesn't matter because Drone Deploy is doing it through some sort of networked system of computers that you don't have to worry about. So they have overcome these problems, but when I've talked to my clients, I have clients that use just Skydio and that's all that they can use. I have other clients like construction companies who, if it's a quote unquote mission critical construction site, meaning it's critical infrastructure, the construction engineers, the managers, and the employees themselves, they can't even bring phones on the site. They don't even fly drones anyway. So for that particular user group, this drone doesn't work for them. They're gonna stick with other drones. When we talk about some of our utility clients, all they can use is Skydio. And the Skydio X10 is like the best domestically approved drone for inspections and, you know, doing some of this mapping stuff. Because when it comes to utilities, Skydio drones can fly in environments where other drones can't. They do have the best world-class autonomy. And when you're mapping things like substations, Skydio is the best drone. The reason that I'm telling you all of this is that we are evolving as an industry as a whole. You are starting to see the real practical implications of drones becoming more niche, meaning that we are seeing more and more aircraft that are being use case specific rather than an amazing aerial platform that can kind of do it all. We're moving away from the F-150 pickup truck and we're getting into the Rivians of the world. Okay, now that's great and all, but look how EVs have done. They haven't done very well. That's because having a platform does better, which there are other domestically approved options out there that are amazing. They're great, but they're large. Skydio's done I'm not gonna lie, they've done a very good job. A couple of small tweaks though, and this drone becomes the drone that many of us need, just not at the price point that it's at. Flying the Skydio, I have to say, first of all, thank you to Skydio. Thank you to Trent in providing us this Skydio. A lot of our clients are going to be using the Skydio X10. A price point average around $23,000 is palpable for some of them, but for many other clients, it's not palpable, and they can buy 5 drones for that price point and get it done. What really matters is if you are here because you need to comply with the NDAA, you need to have a domestically approved drone, a drone that's not made in China, Skydio is going to be the way to go. Skydio has overcome a lot of the problems that they had in previous aircraft. Yeah, you can fly the drone a lot further. Now you can fly it over cellular. Now you can process your maps on the drone, which is crazy. Now you can do a lot of things that you couldn't do before. But Skydio and other companies are prone to this niching down of drones and the evolution of the drone market as well. If you consider cell tower inspections, we tried flying a tower scan numerous times. It never worked. It never worked. They literally took tower scan off of the remote. I got an email this morning, I think it's 5 weeks later, they've added it back onto the remote. I still haven't been able to complete a cell tower scan. And that makes sense. The 3 major cell tower owners, you talk about Crown Castle, American Tower, and there's a couple other smaller ones. They have a specific workflow that they expect to be done in a specific way to create index maps of all their antennas, their visual line of sight of these antennas, the coverage of their antennas. They're trying to create the Zillow of cell phone towers in the country. I'm hard pressed to find any of the people that we work with and that we train for wanting to use this drone. But there are other companies that we train that are in utilities, like let's talk about power, and pretty much all they use is Skydio. So I say this because I don't want to inhibit a potential relationship with Skydio, but I also was not sponsored to make this video. I did get my hands finally on an X10 and I'm able to provide you with this information, but my goal is to provide you with a comprehensive set of information, as unbiased as possible information, and information that helps you make a purchasing decision so that your pilots can get the job done as you expect them to do and as you expect the drone to do. If you're doing inspections and you need a domestically approved drone, this is an amazing aircraft. If you're doing 3D models with this drone, it's an amazing aircraft. If you need to do video though, and any of those things I mentioned, this may not be the best drone for you, because I'm not sure why Skydio did this. I think this is a massive mistake, but they limited their drone to be 4K 30. 4K 30 frames per second. That's great, everyone, but even like if you're doing an inspection with really high winds and you're having an issue taking photos, shooting video in a high frame rate sometimes solves that problem. And having high frame rate video, it just makes everything easier. I mean, let's take a police force, right? There is that police agency, Chula Vista, right? Chula Vista took on Skydio drones, they pumped Skydio, and then the chief of police now works for Skydio. Pretty clear to see what happened there. But what they did is they pioneered this whole send a drone first to a scene rather than a person. I understand the concept in trying to save law enforcement officers' lives, and I think that's fantastic. I just think that the drones aren't there yet. We need a physical human presence to deal with physical human problems, let's be honest. But when it comes to that world-class autonomy, Skydio still takes the lead. I mean, this is still by far the best autonomy system we have ever seen. And if you're mapping substations, if you're mapping power lines, if you're mapping nuclear sites, if you're mapping and doing data for NNSA, this drone is great. But imagine if they could use this drone to also shoot their visual communications videos, their marketing videos, their public service announcement videos, right? They could do so much more if they had more than just one filming mode. I think that this was a strategic choice by Skydio, and I think that they could do a lot if they allowed their cameras to shoot a higher frame rate of video, and we know the hardware is there to do it. So in all honesty, I was really impressed with the leaps and bounds that Skydio made with this drone. And if you need a domestically approved drone and you're doing mapping, this is a fantastic bird. But please understand there are limitations, and I really believe that this is a use case specific drone. And if that's you, then there is no better drone. But if you're doing a lot of stuff and you need a platform, there are better aircraft out there. I hope this review helps you. I hope that it helps you understand that Skydio has definitely made inroads. They have definitely made progress. Is it there as a competitor though, or as an American competitor to the elephant in the room, DJI? No, it is not there yet, but it's getting damn close. It's getting very close. I hope this video helps you. I hope it helps you understand the reality about the drone market here in the United States as well. And if you need to learn how to fly the crap out of this Skydio X10, and you need to know how to do mapping missions, how to do 3D modeling missions, our entire course is now complete and it's available to all of our props clients. It is also available as a Don't Crash course to our annual members, and it's also available if you want to buy just that course. Now you can. So check it out. It's the Skydio X10 Don't Crash course. If you want to get the most out of that drone and know how to solve problems and overcome adversity, that's the course for you. That's going to do it for me and everyone at the Drone U flight crew. Quick shout out to everyone who worked on this video. I'm Brandon Hess here at Drone U, Andrew Carey with Esri, Trent Cossey with Cleartopia Solutions. Special thanks to Skydio. Special thanks to Loveland Fire Rescue for giving us the site to fly over there. And a special thanks to everyone who gives us an opportunity to fly and test these drones. I know everyone wants glowing reviews, but we don't build credibility with our audience by just saying, this is the best drone ever. It's not the best drone ever. And DJI doesn't even make the best drones ever. DJI 5 years ago made the best drones ever. And on that bombshell, that's gonna do it for us today.